Have you ever experienced burnout? If so, how did you deal with it? Welcome back to the Living Inside Out podcast. It's been a while, but we are back, refreshed, recharged, and with a brand new look. And did you hear it? Our brand new theme song. I'm Toks, and this is the start of an exciting new chapter for the podcast. We've taken some time to pause, reflect, and realign with our purpose, and today we're going to dive into the journey so far, the lessons learned, the ones that are still being learned, and what's coming next. If you have been listening for a long time from the start, thank you for sticking around. I have missed you. And if you are new here, welcome to the Living Inside Out community. It's all about embracing growth and faith and entrepreneurship and making change from the inside out. In today's episode 101, I'll be sharing why I needed to take a step back and reassess not just the podcast, but my own journey. We'll also reflect on some of the most powerful lessons I've learned over the past few years, your favorite episodes, the ones that are still being downloaded, however many years ago. Also share the guests that we're going to be having. Yes, we're going to have guests, and we're going on YouTube. Well, we already are on YouTube, but we're going to be more present on YouTube. So here we go. Welcome to episode 101. Welcome back. And I want to hear your thoughts about our new look, at our new music. What do you think about the rebrand? The rebrand was needed. It was necessary because I felt that after 100 episodes, I couldn't simply just go on to 101. It would be sacrilege. Needed to do something different. And I had all these ideas. I wanted to record a live audience. And I had the intention of doing so in Nigeria because I was in Nigeria shortly after 100 came out. And that didn't happen. And then I thought, oh, maybe we could do something really drastic. But anyway, in the end, a rebrand, new music, new look, new colors, which I'm still getting used to, I confess, but I absolutely love. And we've got new interviews as well. I have been speaking to some incredible minds, and you're going to be pleased when you get to meet them. I think that the best way to learn, if we're not learning from our experiences, is certainly from other people's experiences, which is always better, especially when they've been through challenges. You don't want to have to go through what they went through to learn the lesson. So I've got some generous, amazing people who are going to be sharing their life lessons in the coming weeks. Why did I need to pause and reflect? Oof. Well, besides wanting to do something monumental after recording 100 episodes, I also felt the need, and I had the need to just pause. I had signs of burnout. I'm still working on it. I didn't realize it was burnout. Someone mentioned to me, Toks, from what you're saying, it sounds like you might be burned out. And this is what it looked like for me. Zero interest in my work, but sticking to it nonetheless. Not finding any real joy in the work that I was doing. Seeming to have been dealing with one challenge after the other, with no breaks in between. And really just being on high alert, waiting for the alarm to sound to say, this long, boring, trying season is over. That's what it looked like for me. So I've had to let go of a lot of things. I was piling too much on my plate, having unrealistic expectations for my output, and just really making life difficult for myself when it did not need to be. One of the things I started doing was reading fiction. And honestly, I feel alive just from that. It's really sparked my creativity. I read a lot, but I haven't read fiction in a while. And for a very long time, I've looked at fiction as a reward for my hard work, and I tend to stockpile on it over Christmas. But this time around, I thought, no, you know what? We're not doing Nollywood on Sunday anymore. We're just going to read fiction. And honestly, it has been great. The other thing I noticed as well was I started learning. I'm on a course at the moment to do with coaching and NLP, and learning has just rejuvenated me. My husband said to me the other day, he goes, "Oh, Toks, you really are an academic. I wish I had forced you to stay at university." Well, I wouldn't say that that ship has sailed, but in this season where I'm learning, I've noticed that my memory has sort of come back. Yeah, perimenopause was trying to steal it, but I've become a lot more alert. I've become a lot more just really eager and looking forward to the next day, which is very different from how I was at episode 100. And so that's been a really positive experience I've had. I've also been sleeping more, and that's helped. Posting on social media every day for the baby cut shop, or not posting, that's a stronghold that I had, because I felt, oh my goodness, the customers are waiting, they want to see something. But no, everyone's busy with their own lives, living their lives. And that realization has released the stronghold that I had, where that business is concerned. I've got a question for you. Have you ever experienced burnout? If so, how did you deal with it? Did you recognize it? Were you told? Did you go to the doctors? How did you find out you had burnout, and how did you address it? Another reason I decided to take a hiatus as well was really reassess the podcast and make sure that I am bringing the best to you, putting my best foot forward. What are the areas that we require improvement in? And just how can this be not just me talking, but also you gaining a lot out of it. And one of the ways that I identified was really bringing in other minds, intelligent minds, who can be a blessing to us. It is my desire that we all come full circle. And by full circle, here's what I mean. When God created you, He had a very specific intention and calling and purpose for your life. And you've lived on earth for however many years. By the time you come to the end of your life should reflect God's initial intention. That's what it means to go full circle. That at the end of your life, it should be that you have come round from the start to the end, and the end of your life reflects the intention God had at the beginning. So it is my desire that we all come full circle and become the person God intended for us to be. Some of the lessons that I've learned in recent years, that when I think about the last 100 episodes, for me, the most impactful lessons have been one on future living. And I find that I'm coming round back to that lesson again, even though this was learned about a year or two ago. All of a sudden it's showing up again, that my inspiration should not come from where I stand today, but it should come from the future. And it all started when I found myself praying for a specific outcome, but my prayer came with the visualization of where I was at the time. So I'll give you an example. You're praying to, let's say, meet a life partner, but you are single, but you want to get married and you're not dating anyone. And while you're praying, the picture you have in your mind is of you being single. But God said, no, you have the picture and the inspiration from your future. And it's not just a case of, hey, I feel lonely right now, therefore I want a partner. Therefore I'm going to pray and I'm going to look out for one. That is getting inspiration from your present circumstance. But if you can accept that the desire you have is an indication of what God initially intended for you, and that is His plan for you, and you allow His plan to inspire you, now that's a whole lot more powerful. So that's a lesson I'm learning. I learned then. Don't remember what episode number it was, but I'll reference it in the show notes. And that seems to be a lesson I'm learning now. So my prayer has been along the lines of, let my inspiration come from the invisible reality and not the visible present. Another lesson that has been monumental for me is when I realized that life is not a straight line. Life is not a straight line was necessary because I found myself and many others trying to straighten out areas that were designed to be bent. Because somehow, somewhere, we grew up believing that if it's not straight, it's imperfect, and our job is therefore to straighten things out. Ever since I accepted that, it has helped me be more accepting of all the rough edges of my life, and even accepting of other people who don't fall into the bracket of people that I would normally want to associate with for whatever reason. And so it's helped me become more accepting of others and more accepting of my own flaws. Knowing that imperfection is a very normal part of life has been one of the most impactful lessons that I learned over the last 100 episodes. On that note, I've got to interrupt you for a moment to tell you all about Get Unstuck. Get Unstuck is my 6-week coaching program specifically designed to help you unlock your gifts and start living the life you've been imagining. You have been imagining it, right? We all have gifts, but often they come wrapped in layers of limiting beliefs. The Get Unstuck program will help you strip away those layers so you can fully access your God-given gifts and use them to soar. This program kicks off on the 1st of November 2024, and you can sign up at toksaroture.com. The answers you seek are buried inside you, and it is time to dig them out. Now, let's get back. Another lesson has been the power of telling your authentic story. So as you know, I did a TED Talk last year, 2023, called The Superpower of Authentic Storytelling, which is when you tell your story with its grit and its grace from the viewpoint of a winner. So this is not the braggadocious story of your success or the whiny story of your failure. If anything, it's almost like a happy balance in between, but it is authentic because people can spot BS from a distance. But when you're being authentic, anyone would want to engage and associate with you. And so I did a TED Talk on the subject, and it continues to open doors for me. I still talk about my story. I share a whole lot more now on LinkedIn than I used to, because even though I preach authenticity, I was finding it difficult to show up as myself on LinkedIn because there was this invisible face, this voice that would constantly say, that's not LinkedIn worthy, because LinkedIn is, shown to be this, is shown to be this corporate space, very proper, very professional, and my stories are anything but that. I also had a look at some of the most listened to Living Inside Out podcast episodes. Number 1 is the introduction, which is my rockstar story. Not surprisingly, the same topic that was my TED Talk. So the TED Talk is really my rockstar story. Some of the questions I get are always centered around the story itself. How did you get back up after you lost everything? How did you get the courage to start again? How long did it take you to recover? That's a very common one. And I want to address that question actually, and I would respond to that by saying, what does success mean to you? Because the question is, how long did it take before you became successful? Well, I had to learn that there were other currencies besides cash, and I measured my success by these other currencies. The world tends to always want to put a number and a figure to things. How much money are you making? How much did it cost you to get there? And so on. But the truth is, if you only measure your progress with cash and numbers, you're going to be burned out very quickly, because you're going to be chasing after something that really is limitless. When are you going to stop? How much is going to be enough for you? So you've got to learn to measure your success via other means: personal growth, changes in your behavior or your character, different friend circle when you find that you have become wiser in selecting your friends, or the caliber of people who are in your life has changed. And again, I'm not talking about wealth here, just the way that they think and the way that they operate and the difference that they're making to your life. People who challenge you. In fact, when you start to get friends and you find yourself around people that you respect more because they are doing better than you, they are more mature, they are wiser, they are older, that's a sign of growth in your own life, because you're attracting people who are in a space that you hope to one day be in. Talking about friends, the third most listened to episode was episode 12, which is called Toxic Friendships. And I'm not surprised, because in that episode I looked at different types of friendships that are toxic. So now I want to reiterate that it's not necessarily the people, but it's always the combination. Perfect example that always comes to mind, and I'll tell you, by the way, that every single friend in there is one that I have had, or the friendship combination. In some cases I mentioned two types of friends, but both character traits were found in one person, but I separated them because sometimes that happens. So one that comes to mind without even me thinking about it is when I was a people pleaser. I used to be friends with somebody who was the opposite of that. She was quite assertive, quite dominating, and also wanted to have almost live vicariously through her friends. So it meant that whatever she wanted to see happen, she would sort of force it on you. And if you're a people pleaser like I used to be, it wouldn't even take a moment before you accept it, and the next thing you know, you're not living your life, you're living someone else's version of what they think your life should be like. So I encourage you to listen to episode 12 again, because in this day and age, no one's got time to be hanging around people who are toxic or holding on to friendships and relationships that are toxic. Recently, I heard some news about an old friend that I'm no longer in touch with, and it was quite negative, to the point where I had to go to my Facebook page and scrub it clean of any association with this individual, because the people that you're friends with are a reflection of who you are. And I didn't want, even though I don't have them in my life anymore, I didn't want their name to be linked into mine, so that one day when you Google my name, you see that person's name show up as well, and they're a dodgy character and there are questions about their integrity and so on. And so it's essential to have real life friends that are people of integrity, that are going somewhere with their lives, that share the same values as you and can pull you up because they're already occupying a space that you want to. It's also essential that you scrub people from your life who you will be ashamed to be found with, and not ashamed because you're prideful, but ashamed because their behavior is not one that you want to be associated with at all. But I will like to hear from you. Which of the past 100 episodes has been your favorite, your go-to, the one that was impactful, the one that made you stop and think, listen again, and made you share? I would love to hear from you. I want to leave you with a lesson I'm currently learning, which is that nothing has meaning except the meaning you give it. I want you to pause and think about that. In the previous, I think it was 97, 98, episodes 97 and 98, I talked about circumstances were neutral, which is that a circumstance is neither good nor bad. It is only defined as good or bad based on the emotion that it elicits from us. Well, I want to go a little bit further and say that nothing has meaning, that the only reason we call something bad is the meaning that we give to it. How I stumbled across this truth was when I was I just really came across a video on LinkedIn from another coach, and she was talking about fear, and I was actually in a fearful state. No, I wasn't actually in a fearful state, but I'd become fed up of defaulting to fear whenever I felt discomfort or uncertainty. But she said something, the difference between feeling and emotion. And she said emotion is the emotion on its own. So like joy and happiness and fear, those are emotions. But feelings are a combination of the emotion plus the story that you're telling yourself. So for example, if I have an emotion of fear, but then I add fear of my health because I've heard stories about people who had this pain in this particular place and it turned out to be a very bad illness or something like that. I've attached a story to it. And what's going to end up happening is I will have a somatic or a physical response to that. And that could be my heart racing, my palms may get sweaty, I may even get a headache. I've received news, or rather thoughts about situations that hit me so hard I got an instant headache. I don't know if that happens to you. But when you have a physical reaction to an emotion or to a story that you're telling yourself, a lot of times we want to recoil from that reaction because of the discomfort of it going through our bodies. And I realized that we were taught to recognize physical pain, and we've also been taught to recognize emotional pain as well, but we were never told that emotional pain could create a physical reaction. And so that physical reaction is so discomforting that we would do everything in our power to avoid it. So when I think about some of the situations that I have been scared of or I have avoided, it wasn't actually the situation that scared me. It was the feeling that came with the story I was telling myself. It was that feeling of my heart racing and, combined with, oh my goodness, this is not going to end well type stories. That's what I was scared of. Because when you think about it, when you go on a roller coaster, you have a very similar experience anyway. Your heart races, but you're not afraid, are you? And so I'm still learning a lot about all of this, but where I'm at right now, learning this particular lesson has made a difference to dealing with stories I'm telling myself and emotions. That feeling of discomfort apparently lasts on average 90 seconds. So if you can just pause and let it pass, and then ask yourself, what story am I telling myself? What am I saying to myself? What is the meaning I'm attributing to this particular situation? I want to invite you to stay connected as we look forward to a lot of exciting content coming up. If you haven't subscribed to Living Inside Out, please do so on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere where podcasts are played, and also on YouTube, because on YouTube you get to see our faces, you get to see my guests' faces and their lovely outfits. I want to thank you again for your support on this journey. I thank you for not giving up, for coming back to listen, for bearing with me when I have been inconsistent or I have moaned and complained. There were these episodes where it's in like back to back to back. All I talked about was I'm going through a rough season. But thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to my whining. And even though I took a break, you have come back to support, and your messages over the months have really, really encouraged me to return stronger. So I appreciate you. I love you with all of my heart, and I thank you once more for listening to Living Inside Out.